Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily.
Then became obvious that I was looking at a human torso.
Jurors get their first look at the graphic evidence in the murder trial of Chandler Halderson and the latest twist in the Lori Vallow DAYBELL story.
It's the state's understanding that this court had reviewed that in making the determination to keep the protective order in place with regard to Mr. Means.
Plus, weeks after her guilty conviction, Ghislaine Maxwell's defense wants to be back inside the courtroom. Why a juror's past could mean a new trial. And later,
1 year ago today, in this sacred place, democracy was attacked.
the latest developments in the January 6th investigation. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. For the first time, jurors in Wisconsin are shown the graphic images of Bart Halderson's remains. This as his son stands trial for the murder of his parents. Prosecutors say 23-year-old Chandler Halderson murdered his parents, 50-year-old Bart and 53-year-old Krista Halderson, in July 2021. They say he lied to his parents about attending a technical college in Madison, Wisconsin, and about receiving a job offer from SpaceX. Prosecutors argue that the defendant killed both his parents when his father discovered he wasn't enrolled in school. After that, they say Halderson cut up their bodies with knives and saws and attempted to burn their remains in the family fireplace. Days later, he scattered other parts of their bodies across southern Wisconsin before their remains were discovered. Halderson reported his parents missing to police and told a similar story to Wisconsin TV stations. On Wednesday, the state called Bart Halderson's brother, Brett Halderson, to the stand. Prosecutor Andrea Raymond ended her direct examination with emotional testimony from the witness.
When was the last time you talked to your brother, Bart?
It would have been the morning of July 1st.
Is there any reason you remember that date?
Because that's my birthday. Our family makes it a ritual of contacting each other on our birthdays. And that was the phone call that he had made to me that morning.
Is that the last time you spoke to your brother?
Yes.
No further questions.
On Thursday, jurors were shown graphic photos of Bart Halderson's torso from the first time. They heard from Dane County Sheriff's Officer Detective Brent Baberstock, who discovered the human remains last summer.
You see the scrapes on the log there, just under the moss, and then you can see the pile of sticks there, and there's something underneath it. Couldn't quite tell what it was right away, so I stepped over the log and got a little bit of a closer look.
And what did you find?
I didn't know what it was at first.
What do you mean by that?
It took me a while to process what I was seeing, you know. Then it became obvious that I was looking at a human torso.
Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Nima Rahmani and Terry Austin. Nima, in a case this graphic, do you think there's a line between showing the jury too much gore and not enough? And if so, do you think the prosecution struck a good balance?
I think the prosecution did, Brian. I'm all about shock and awe in these types of cases. You have an individual who's so sick and twisted, he shot and killed both of his parents and dismembered the bodies after he was unable to burn them and scatter them into two different locations. So you don't want the jurors to feel sorry for Chandler. You want them to identify with these victims who lost their lives because they were pushing their son to go to school and get a job. So I like what the prosecution has done here. They've really painted a story of someone who's not only a liar, but who is mentally unstable and capable of murder.
On top of that, Terry, the victim's brother and the defendant's uncle provided emotional but also some very logical testimony as to when he last spoke with his brother, explaining it like this when his brother went missing. Now, how was that direct examination?
You know, I think Mitchell Halderson did a good job on his direct examination. He's the older brother by 18 months. And while he was a bit stoic, he did serve a purpose. He described the fact that his parents were hardworking. His father was an accountant, the mother was stay at home, and she nurtured both of them. So they were very good. They didn't gamble, and they took their work seriously. So I think he was able to establish that they were great parents, no reason for them to be killed. And frankly, his brother is a ruthless murderer, and it must be very difficult to testify about your own brother.
Yeah, provided a lot of information there. Now to Texas, where a man who's facing wrongful death lawsuits after shooting his girlfriend's ex-husband during a fight on his porch is asking the case to be moved to a different county. He says he won't get a fair trial where the case is currently filed. In November, CARRUTH shot and killed Chad Reed during what investigators believe was a custody dispute, and it was caught on camera. The video appears to show Reed and his ex-wife, the girlfriend of CARRUTH, Christina, arguing on the porch. CARRUTH goes inside his house and emerges with a large gun. That's when Reed grabs the gun and pushes CARRUTH off the porch. Video footage then shows CARRUTH firing 2 shots at Reed, killing him. CARRUTH's attorney says that he claims the man had no other choice but to use deadly force to defend himself and his property. Reed's widow, Jennifer, and his mother, Jinx, filed lawsuits against CARRUTH in December. CARRUTH has asked those cases be paused until a criminal investigation is complete. This week on Brian Ross Investigates, the inspiring story of a man diagnosed with ALS at just 37 years old with 2 children under the age of 3. Chief Correspondent Brian Ross is here to explain how his diagnosis is making a difference. Brian?
Thanks, Brian. Coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates, a profile in courage. The story of a young man diagnosed with a disease that was supposed to kill him years ago. But Brian Wallach and his wife, Sandra, have persevered, defied the odds, and as President Biden said about them, turned their pain into purpose.
The entire world was in front of them. Perhaps a run for elective office at home in Illinois, or working for this White House, raising 2 beautiful daughters, until everything changed. The coughs, the cramps, the twitches. Brian and Sandra are joining us today virtually. I say hi to you both because they turned their pain into purpose.
That's coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates on the Law&Crime Trial Network. Brian?
Thanks, Brian. You can catch Brian Ross Investigates every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Law&Crime Network. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, on the heels of her guilty conviction, Ghislaine Maxwell's defense team says she's entitled to a new trial. But first, the latest in the so-called Doomsday Duo saga, how Lori Vallow, DAYBELL's former attorney, is causing waves in her coming trial.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back. A new development in the case of Harmony Montgomery, a little girl who has been missing since 2019, but was only reported missing last week. Harmony's stepmother, Kayla Montgomery, now faces a welfare fraud charge. The New Hampshire Attorney General's office says Montgomery collected more than $1,500 in food stamp benefits for Harmony after she disappeared in 2019. Harmony's father, Adam Montgomery, faces a second-degree assault charge for allegedly punching Harmony in the eye in 2019. He's also charged with endangering the welfare of a child and interfering with custody. Kayla Montgomery pled not guilty, and her bail was set at $5,000 cash. New Hampshire's Department of Health and Human Services declined to comment on Harmony's case when contacted by Law and Crime, saying the agency had to protect the confidentiality of families it serves. Police in New Hampshire are still searching for Harmony and trying to figure out what happened to her. The so-called Doomsday Duo mother, Lori Vallow, DAYBELL's legal team goes before a judge for a hearing to discuss her former attorney, who was recently taken off her case. Law and Crime's Terry Austin joins us now with the details out of the hearing.
Brian, Mark Means was recently disqualified from representing Lori Vallow DAYBELL after it was revealed he previously represented her husband and co-defendant in the case, Chad Daybell. Now prosecutors want to ensure he won't talk about the case publicly. Lori and Chad Daybell are charged with several crimes, including first-degree murder in connection with the death of Lori's 2 children, Joshua J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Chad's first wife, Tammy Daybell. Vallow is now represented by James Archibald, who was previously appointed as co-counsel. During a hearing on Wednesday, the judge, prosecutors, and Vallow's attorney discussed concerns about Mark Means' access to privileged information that could be disclosed. Vallow listened to the hearing by telephone. Prosecutors requested the hearing to ensure a previously sealed order includes Mark Means, but they stopped short of requesting a complete gag order. The court determined that the order covers current and former counsel, including Mark Means.
We want to make clear we're not asking for additional restrictions under Idaho Criminal Rule 16. We are only asking to have that remain in effect, whether or not that's just clarifying that it does remain in effect, or whether or not it needed to be extended or expanded to remain in effect. But we're not asking for additional restrictions outside of what are already in place with regard to the disclosure of any discovery materials or information.
So the order, which was issued by Judge Watkins on July 15th, and looked at the terms of that order, the order, as it's written, I think serves to be in effect as to both Mr. Archibald and Mr. Means.
Lori and Chad Daybell's case is scheduled to go to trial in January of 2023.
Thanks, Terry. Let's bring back criminal defense attorney Nima Rahmani and Terry Austin to dive into Mark Means' impact on the Doomsday case. Terry, what do you think the impact of all of this is going to be on the Daybells? A trial hasn't even started, but could there be a claim of ineffective assistance of counsel?
You know, I think that Lori particularly is going to claim everything. You can count on that. She's going to claim ineffective assistance of counsel. I mean, so far she's effectively delayed the trial by claiming that she's incompetent. And although insanity is not a defense in Idaho, they can assert the fact that she is mentally ill, so she wasn't able to have that intent, that mens rea. So I think they're going to pull every trick out of the bag to defend the case as much as they can.
Nima, is or should Mark Means have a job after this? Could these be violations of a lawyer's rules of ethics?
Brian, it's been one ethical violation after another for Means, and the irony is he tried to get the prosecution disqualified in this case. But let's look at what he did. He has an actual conflict because he was advising Chad when the search warrant was executed where they found the children's remains in the backyard. He violated the attorney witness rule when he himself testified to Lori's incompetence. And of course, he's not even death penalty qualified there in Idaho, so he shouldn't be handling this case anyway.
I mean, Nima, as you talk about it, I'm getting flashbacks of the MPRE and just shaking, like so many things wrong. This could be an MPRE question down the line as to what not to do as a defense attorney. Thank you both. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, President Joe Biden delivers an emotional speech on the one-year anniversary of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Plus, could recently convicted socialite Ghislaine Maxwell soon see a new trial? Still ahead, why her defense team says a second trial is on the way. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. A family and community are mourning the loss of a North Carolina state trooper after his brother, who was also a trooper, hit and killed him and another driver during a traffic stop. It happened Monday night in Rutherford County, an hour west of Charlotte. James Horn lost control of his patrol vehicle while he was approaching a traffic stop. He collided with his brother John's patrol car, which was parked on the side of the road. He hit John and the driver he detained, who were standing near the patrol car. Both John and the driver were taken to the hospital and died because of their injuries. The North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation and the State Highway Patrol Collision Reconstruction Unit are investigating. On to New York federal court, where lawyers for Ghislaine Maxwell will ask for a new trial after a juror in the case told reporters he's a survivor of sexual abuse. Juror 50 granted at least 2 interviews in which he said he discussed his experience with sexual abuse during deliberations with other jurors. It's not clear whether the juror disclosed the abuse on his questionnaire. He told one outlet he breezed through it. Prosecutor alerted the court to the issue Wednesday and requested a hearing. But Maxwell's attorney said in a letter that a hearing wasn't necessary because a new trial was warranted based on the juror's statements alone. Maxwell was convicted on 5 of 6 counts last month relating to sex trafficking young girls. She is the former girlfriend of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Juror 50's lawyer has not responded to Law and Crime's request for comment. Here to explain the possible appeal issues in the Maxwell case is criminal defense attorney Nima Rahmani and co-host Terry Austin. Terry, what are the arguments you suspect Maxwell's team will raise, and are they strong ones?
I think they're fairly strong, Brian. The defense is trying to vacate these guilty verdicts. They're claiming jury misconduct, and actually they have a very good case. 2 jurors have now said they may have been victims of sexual abuse, and they did not mention that during their questionnaire. And they discussed these experiences during the deliberations. And in fact, one juror was trying to convince the rest of the jury about his experiences, saying that he believed the witnesses, even though the witnesses might not have remembered everything. And frankly, they're not supposed to serve as experts. There's a good chance that this really could be vacated.
Now, Nima, could we actually see a new trial, or could this be a strong negotiation tool for Maxwell to seek a better deal?
I think we will see a new trial, and this is why. The Department of Justice, you cannot give Ghislaine Maxwell a break, especially after what happened when Alex Acosta was U.S. attorney and he gave Jeff Epstein that sweetheart deal where he barely served any local time. He obviously died, never received the criminal justice that he deserved, so you want to do right by these victims. Even if you have to retry the case, if you're the U.S. Attorney's Office, that's what you do to finally bring some closure for this really heinous sexual abuse ring that took place over decades.
All right, we may be seeing then a Ghislaine Maxwell charge coming up, and maybe a trial part 2. We'll of course give you updates as this argument for a new trial continues. When we come back, 1 year since the January 6 attacks, an investigation is still ongoing. The latest from the January 6 committee and President Joe Biden's comments on the 1-year anniversary. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Thursday marks the 1-year anniversary of the January 6, 2021 insurrection in Washington, D.C., where a mob swarmed the U.S. Capitol in an effort to overthrow the results of the 2020 presidential election. 1 year later, the so-called January 6 committee is still investigating the attacks, most recently contacting Fox News host Sean Hannity about the incident. As Law and Crime Daily has reported, messages between Hannity and several other Fox News hosts were sent to former President Trump and then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, condemning the attack. The committee has also been in contact with former Vice President Mike Pence, who certified the 2020 presidential election results. They say he is cooperating with the investigation. On Thursday, President Joe Biden addressed the attacks, saying it was a threat on the foundation of America's rule of law.
The will of the people was under assault. The Constitution, our Constitution, faced the gravest of threats. Outnumbered in the face of a brutal attack, the Capitol Police, the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, the National Guard, and other brave law enforcement officials saved the rule of law. Our democracy held. We, the people, endured. We, the people, prevailed. For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power as a violent mob breached the Capitol. But they failed. They failed. And on this day of remembrance, we must make sure that such attack never happens again.
Nima, what do you make of the investigation into the insurrection now that a year has passed? And what grade would you give it?
Brian, I would give the Department of Justice a solid B, and this is why. They've done a good job identifying almost all the people that unlawfully entered the Capitol building using social media. Some of them were stupid enough to stream it while they were breaking the law, and snitches. And also, they've gotten to the next level. Folks that weren't there, but that were leading the insurrection, the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers. The reason I don't give them an A is just the slow pace of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, obviously, federal prosecutors, they're not used to handling this volume of cases, but I would have expected at least one or more of the cases to have gone to trial after a year anniversary of the Capitol riots.
All right, I think some of the trials are coming up, I think maybe in a few weeks, so let's see if they can get an A in your books. Terry, your reaction to President Biden's remarks, did he hit the right points in the proper tone for the seriousness of this anniversary?
Brian, he absolutely hit the right points and the proper tone. His remarks today were the strongest to date on the subject. While he didn't mention Trump by name, he definitely referred to the former president multiple times. And one of the things I think he was trying to do is to basically set the stage for the next presidential election. He's trying to say that he is the right person for this country, and Trump is not. Trump cannot put himself above the law, which is one of the things Biden was saying that Trump was trying to do here. And basically, he cannot keep attacking democracy. We all have to make sure that we protect what our country is standing for, which obviously is for democracy, and we cannot allow this to happen again. So one of the lines that he said that I thought was really good is that you can't put yourself above the system, and you can't love your country only when you win.
All right, powerful lines to end there. Thank you, Terry and Nima. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.